I'm Abigail, this is Megan, and welcome to another Two Kids interview. This is actually our 50th episode, so it better be a good one.
No worries there, because we're joined by New York Times bestselling author and Emmy Award winner, Rob Renzetti.
Hello.
Mr. Renzetti is probably best known for creating the Nickelodeon show My Life as a Teenage Robot.
He's also directed the Cartoon Network series Dexter's Laboratory, Powerpuff Girls, and Samurai Jack.
For the Disney Channel, he was a supervising producer for the show Gravity Falls and executive producer for Big City Greens.
He was also the executive producer for the Netflix show Kid Cosmic.
He has also worked on many other TV shows, and if that weren't enough, he has also written numerous books, including DuckTales, Solving Mysteries, and Rewriting History,
a Gravity Falls guidebook, Onward, Quests of the Yore, the New York Times bestselling book Gravity Falls Journal 3,
and last month he came out with a wonderful middle grade novel, The Horrible Bag of Terrible Things.
And the sequel to that, The Twisted Tower of Endless Torment, comes out next year. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on your show.
What percentage of you is adult and what percentage of you is kid?
Well, I don't know. That's an interesting question. You'd have to carve me up to be for sure, but I don't want that to happen. So I will say it's maybe 50-50. It's definitely got to be at least 100% when I'm writing for kids. So I kind of put the adult part of me mostly away when I start writing or creating cartoons or whatever. But we'll say let's say 55% adult, 45% kid. That seems more responsible.
You are a very successful animator, and then you write books based off of animation.
Now you wrote an original story, The Horrible Bag of Terrible Things. What inspired you to do that? And should we expect to see this book series become animated in the future?
Well, answering the last question first, maybe. Anything's possible. I certainly would be interested in doing it as an animated feature or as a mini series on, say, Netflix or Amazon or one of the streaming services. But right now, I'm just trying to tell the best story I can in book form. So I'll let the future kind of take care of itself. But
yes.
I always wanted to write an original story. I just didn't have the chance until I had written the other books I did for Disney Publishing. I did 4 books based on properties that already existed with Disney. And the fact that one of them was a New York Times bestseller, I think, gave me a little bit of cred in the book publishing world, so that when I went out there with my original idea, there was some interest in it because of the earlier stuff I'd done. I've always wanted to do original stuff. I hope to keep doing original stuff from here on out. But it did take a little bit of time for me to get the opportunity to present it to somebody.
In The Horrible Bag of Terrible Things, you created an entire new realm, like Wonderland or Neverland or Oz. Can you tell us about the challenges of building that out?
It's always a challenge. I kind of had a theme to go with. The land inside the Horrible Bag is called Grabog. And because it was inside of a bag, or like an old-fashioned doctor's bag, which is kind of stitched together with all these crazy animal skins and whatever, I kind of took the exterior as inspiration for the interior. So those stitches exist in Grabog. You're seeing it's kind of a stitched together world. And though there's a grab bag of characters inside of Grabog, many of the places and the characters kind of take themes or are inspired by tailoring or sewing or kind of clothing and things that are made out of cloth and thread. So there's a giant living rag doll called Albert, and Zenith starts to call him, Zenith Maelstrom, the hero in the book, calls him Raggedy Albert, which is kind of inspired by Raggedy Ann and Andy, old characters from the last century. But you know, those kind of characters, that kind of gave me a direction to go in, was the fact that the world is inside of a bag. So I decided to kind of go with that kind of idea of a stitched together world.
Animation has some similarities to graphic novels. You are an animator, and I think The Horrible Bag of Terrible Things would make a great graphic novel. Why did you decide to make it a traditional novel?
Well, mostly because I could write quicker than I would have been able to draw a graphic version of it. And I wasn't sure I would be able to make it as complicated as I wanted to as a graphic novel, because graphic novels, since you're telling mostly a visual story, the story itself, all the different parts of the story, the different adventures are more limited. similar to an animated cartoon. That's why I think Horrible Bag, if we're just that first story, would have to be several episodes of a television show. It couldn't just be one episode. So I knew that I wanted to tell it's short for a book, but for a graphic novel, the story that I tell in The Horrible Bag would have been way too long, and I would have had to simplify it too much, and I wouldn't have been happy with that because I had lots of ideas and I wanted to use them all.
We both like to draw. What does it take to go from artist to animator?
What it takes is mostly the best thing you can do is to try animating. Get good enough at drawing that you feel like you have a character that you are confident enough drawing that you think you could maybe animate it, and then you start trying to do simple animation with those characters. There's lots of tutorials out there now, lots of good books you can track down that will teach you the principles of animation. That's how I learned myself, even though I wasn't as young as you two. I tried to do an animated film when I was in grade school with a film I borrowed from my teacher, and I never saw that film. Somehow the film didn't work out, and I know it wouldn't have been animated anyways. I didn't know what I was doing. But when I was in college, I actually found out there was an animation school called California Institute of Arts out here in Valencia, California, and I wanted to go. And I was told by friends that knew that the best thing I could do would be to animate a cartoon. So I kind of animated my own cartoon on my own, much like I'm recommending you do now. And I had a very great book called The Illusion of Life. It was written by two Disney animators from the classic days, and they lay out all the principles of animation and give you a good you can really read how to become an animator and then try it out yourself. The best thing to do is to try it, just like writing. The best thing to do is try writing. So once you feel confident enough in your drawing, try animating the characters you feel like you can draw well enough to animate them.
I kind of make animation with stop motion.
Oh, stop motion is great.
And flip books can also relate to animation.
Flip books are also a good, quick little way to do stuff. I did a few flip books when I was a kid, just with a simple stick figure. You don't have to draw very complicated characters to learn how to animate. Sometimes the simpler characters are more charming and fun to work with.
When creating an animated show, how important is the story compared to the animation?
I think the story is the most important thing, honestly, even though I love animation, because the story and the characters will grab the audience. You guys know, you watch television, you watch movies, you watch animated movies, you watch live action movies. The thing that you're really interested in is the character and the stories, and the medium that they're told through, while important, is not as essential as good characters and a good story. So I would say the story is the most important thing. And hopefully, if you do get a cartoon show, you're going to be telling lots of stories. So you want to have characters that you feel like have enough range and enough, and the world's big enough for them to exist within several stories, that hopefully you'll keep telling stories as your show continues through different seasons and stuff.
How do you come up with ideas for shows or books?
I don't know. It's a trick. Your mind does a trick. There's no practical way to do it. The practical part is to sit down and work on it. The work part. Sometimes you get inspired. Sometimes ideas come to you in the shower. But the most important thing is to sit down and work, meaning stare at a blank screen or a blank piece of paper. And don't get up and don't get distracted. Though we all get distracted a lot these days. But the most important thing is just to show up every day and try. You can't wait for inspiration, because in the animation industry, you have to be creative on a schedule. Same in the publishing industry. I have a deadline for the book I'm currently writing. So whether I want to or not, I got to sit down every day and write a little bit more. Otherwise, it'll never get done.
Sometimes when I'm drawing, I see other people's drawings and they're way better than mine. So, and that sometimes discourages me. But another day, I just am getting bored. So I grab a notebook and a pencil, and then I start drawing, and I look at it and I feel, wow, I'm proud of this, actually.
Well, that's good. That's a good feeling, right? I had the same feeling when I went to that school out here in California, the California Institute of Arts. I was surrounded by everybody that had drawn all their life just like I did, and lots of them were better than me. Most of them were better than me. It was very discouraging, but you have to discover that the only person you're competing against is yourself. You just want to make sure you're improving in your drawing and your writing, because there's always going to be somebody out there who's doing better than you, and people that out there are doing worse than you. And you want to just let them do what they're going to do, and you work on yourself and try and get better at what you are doing. And if you're getting better, that's something you want to pursue, then you're a success.
What is your process when putting the story together?
Do you decide the end before the middle?
Or do you put it together in order?
I put together however it comes into my mind. I try and start with the characters. In this case, in the Horrible Bag, Zenith Maelstrom is the main character, and his older sister Apogee Maelstrom is kind of the secondary character. And the books, there's going to be 3 of them. The books are really about their relationship. So that's kind of the nugget around which the adventure is composed. So all the adventures in Grabog, which are a lot of fun and which I enjoy writing, they all have to serve the character story, what's going on between Zenith and his sister. So that's kind of the core, though sometimes I don't quite have that set in stone. I know kind of what's going to happen between them, but I don't know all the details. And sometimes doing the plot, doing the exterior adventure, like, oh, Zenith will go here and Zenith will go there, or no, Apogee will get captured, but then she'll get released. All those kind of little plot things are sometimes easier to write in a first draft. So sometimes I'll kind of, even though I know the character story is the center, I'll kind of put it aside and just do the action and get the action done because I have lots of ideas for the action. And then after that's done, I'll go back and look at it and evaluate it based on whether it works for the character story or not. And sometimes I'll have to change things because it's not going to work for where the characters need to go. But so it's kind of, there's not really any one way to come at it. It's just kind of as the ideas come, I kind of write them all down. Sometimes they're really bad ideas. I write everything down with a question mark at the end, because if then it makes me feel like I can write any stupid idea down if there's a question mark at the end, because then if I look back on it and think it's real stupid, it's like, well, I wasn't really sure about it anyways, because it has a question mark.
Can you tell us about a time when you were doing something and saw someone or something and thought, I need to put that in a show?
No, I can't. Because usually what happens is you live your life and you have lots of weird experiences and you have sad experiences and funny experiences. And then when years later, when you're writing something, one of those experiences will just fit. It's like a puzzle piece you didn't know you needed. Like you can count a puzzle piece and you don't have a puzzle that it goes to, but you put it aside, you put it in like the random puzzle piece box. And then someday all of a sudden you're confronted by a puzzle and that's the one piece that's missing. And you're like, oh, that's perfect. Here, it goes in there. So I'd never have seen anything on the street that I was immediately like, that's got to be in a story. But I've had plenty of experiences that I've remembered over the years, and some that I haven't. That when sometimes all of a sudden I'll remember something from my childhood that I hadn't thought of in 30 years, but now I think of it because it works perfectly for this story.
We have interviewed a number of writers and authors who have had books banned.
This means in some parts of the country, kids don't have the same access to books that we have,
and less opportunity to see them sell. Can you give us your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, I think it's horrible that what's happening right now in terms of the book bans and whatever. I don't think the people that are trying to do this will ultimately win or gain anything from it. I think that anytime anybody tries to ban knowledge, it never works out well for them. So, and I think that just the fact that they're banning certain books will only make those books more attractive to the kids that want to read those books and that want to see themselves in the pages of those books. And so I don't think they're going to stop any kids from getting the books ultimately. And I don't think they're going to achieve anything ultimately politically, which is what they're really after, which is trying to do something, trying to win a battle that they can't win in a more legitimate way. So I'm not in favor of book bans. I'm mostly in favor of letting kids read what they want to read. I mean, obviously parents are involved. I'm not a parent myself, so I can't speak to all that, but I think kids in collaboration with their parents know what's best for those kids, for themselves and or if you're a parent, for your kid. And you guys are the best people to try and figure that out, not politicians who really don't know what they're talking about and haven't read the books they're trying to ban.
We definitely agree.
Yeah. But what person or people have had the most influence on your work?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, I would say other authors have had the most influence on my books. I'm inspired by, like the one of the books you mentioned, Alice in Wonderland, was a huge influence on the Horrible Bag and the sequel as well. In terms of filmmakers, I was very, very, very much in love with Alfred Hitchcock's films when I was young, like a kind of preteen and into my teenage years. I love music. I don't know that it has a direct influence on my work, but I listen to a lot of music when I write and when I draw, usually non-lyrical music when I'm writing. And I have a lot of old rock stars that I love. David Bowie was one of my favorites. I can't say, I love the films of Orson Welles. I love Hitchcock. The I know you guys have asked this question to other authors. What was your favorite book when you were growing up? Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams, and the sequels, but especially that first book is by far one of my favorite books. I read it, I don't know, every 5 to 10 years I read it again. I love that book. So that was a huge influence on my own sense of humor and my own, what I aspire to be in a writer, was what Douglas Adams was doing with those books. How's that? I don't want to ramble on too long.
We often ask authors what advice do they have for kids who want to write, and they always tell us to read a lot.
Does that mean if we want to work on an animated show, we need to tell our parents to watch lots of cartoons?
Wow, this question is really, I think you have a predetermined answer set up for this question. I don't think there's any problem with watching lots of cartoons, and it will be good if you want to go in animation. Watch old cartoons too, not just the new cartoons that are out there. My favorite cartoons growing up were what's that? What do you like?
Like the Flintstones and stuff?
Flintstones, but go older. Like, have you guys ever seen the old 1930s and 40s Popeye cartoons that were done, the theatrical cartoons?
I have heard of them, but I haven't actually watched them.
I love them. I don't know what you're there. Popeye is a grumpy old sailor, but with a heart of gold. And he does get into a lot of physical altercations with the villains in his cartoons. So your parents may not approve. I don't think usually there's anything wrong with cartoon violence because it's not real violence. It's very cartoony and fun. They're very, very inventive cartoons. They were my favorite cartoons growing up as a kid. So if you can find some Popeye cartoons and your parents approve, I would say look at some old Popeye cartoons. But look at every cartoon you can find. There's something good about any cartoon you can find. So I do recommend watching any cartoon you can get your eyeballs on.
I've seen Steamboat Willie before.
Oh, sure, that's old. That's old Mickey Mouse cartoons. Those are good too. But yeah, lots of old cartoons are good. They were on TV when I was growing up. All the old cartoons, Fred Flintstone and the other Hanna-Barbera cartoons, the old Popeye cartoons, Disney cartoons you couldn't really see. They were hard to see. But other than that, Warner Brothers cartoons, all the old Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck cartoons, those were on TV all the time. So those are still all out there. You can grab them on DVD or see them on streaming services. They're all worth watching.
We are already excited for next summer's Twisted Tower of Endless Torment. But can you tell us about another upcoming project that you are currently working on? That's a tongue twister.
It is. I was going to say the same thing. That's a tongue twister. What did I do with that title? There's too many T's there. Well, I've been, besides writing the third book in the trilogy, which I don't have a title for yet, but it hopefully won't be as much of a tongue twister as the second book. I am writing that book currently, but I'm also writing a new adventure for Jenny Wakeman, the hero of my TV show, My Life as a Teenage Robot. If you sign up for my newsletter, robrenzetti.com, I've been writing a serialized story for Jenny and her friends, a news story. The first time I've written a story for those characters in like 16 years. And I've been releasing it a chapter at a time to the subscribers to my newsletter. So I'm in the middle of writing that. In fact, I have to write the next episode tomorrow. So I got to figure that out. I got to sit in front of my blank screen and figure out what that's all about. But I've been doing that. So that's the other project that I'm in the middle of right now.
Finally, it's time for Turbo 10.
Oh no.
10 rapid fire questions. Some of them you might have already answered, but
I will answer them again. I'm ready. And I'm going to give you quick answers. I've seen other authors do this and they don't give you. This is supposed to be fast. So I hope you're timing me.
Yes. Thank you.
Number 1, what is your favorite phrase to use?
Okay, this would be an R-rated phrase, but I'm gonna clean up for you. My favorite phrase is "that's a bunch of horse crap."
Number 2, what is one subject you'd love to learn more about?
Marine biology.
Number 3, what is your go-to snack food?
Lorna Doone cookies.
Number 4, what was your favorite book growing up?
The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Number 5, if you could teleport somewhere right now, where would you go?
Kyoto, Japan.
Number 6, if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
The ability to breathe underwater.
Number 7, what was your favorite cartoon as a kid?
Popeye.
Number 8, what's your favorite rainy day activity?
Playing board games with my wife.
Number 9, if you could have any 3 dinner guests, who would they be?
Dick Van Dyke, David Bowie, and the director Orson Welles.
Number 10, What's the best piece of advice you were ever given?
Don't chew with your mouth open.
You were awesome. Thank you so much for doing that.
Please send me my time and how quickly I answered those questions.
We will. And thank you so much for being with us today.
We can't wait to read your future books. And that was definitely a faster TurboTax.
Yeah, faster than anyone's ever done before, probably.
Woohoo! I'm the champion. Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Abigail. Thanks for having me on the show.